Once upon a time, in the village of Oka-Agbede, nestled deep in the heart of Yoruba land, the sun rose over the sprawling fields of cassava, yam, and maize. The sounds of roosters crowing echoed through the air, signaling the start of a new day. It was a place where life moved slowly and people knew each other by name. But beneath the surface of this peaceful rural community, there was tension brewing in one particular home. Bamidele, a wealthy and successful farmer with fields stretching as far as the eye could see, was sitting outside his home deliberating on making a life-changing decision. His reputation in Oka-Agbede was solid, and his wealth grew each year. Yet, despite his outward success, there was an ache that tugged at his heart every time he looked at his wife Stella. Stella was a beautiful woman, graceful, intelligent, and with a kind smile that could light up a room. They had been married for 7 years, and in those 7 years, there had been no children, not even a single miscarriage. For a man like Bamidele, this was a crushing blow, as children were considered the legacy of every man. It was believed that without a child, most importantly a son to carry on his name, he was as good as dead. Bamidele tried not to show his frustration. He loved Stella deeply. But every time he looked around the village and saw his peers with their children, there was an indescribable pain he felt in his heart. Stella was the only woman he had ever been with, his first love, but what was the point of love if it didn't come with children? The villagers spoke in whispers any time he passed, and people wouldn't stop recommending native medicines and doctors that they felt would help cure them of their barrenness. On this particular day, Bamidele decided he has had enough. As he sat by the late-night fire, he decided he was going to take another wife. I have tried enough, he told himself, trying to justify the action he was about taking. I love Stella, but I want kids too. He called Stella out to inform her of his decision. At least, I am better than my other colleagues who just bring in another woman into their home without informing their wives. Stella, upon seeing the look on his face, knew something was wrong. There was a coldness in the air, an unspoken tension that made her uneasy. Bamidele, what is it? Why have you called me out here? She asked, her voice soft but filled with concern. Bamidele turned to her, his expression unreadable. Stella, I know I made a promise to never take a second wife when we got married, but the events of the last few years has made me change my mind, and I have made a decision, he began, his voice steady but laced with finality. I am going to take another wife. I need children. I need a son who can carry on my name. Stella's heart skipped a bit. She felt as though the earth beneath her had suddenly shifted and the ground was no longer stable. She looked at Bamidele, his face set in stone, and she felt a lump form in her throat. Bamidele, please, don't do this. You can't be serious, she stammered, her eyes welling up with tears. But Bamidele wasn't moved. I am serious, Stella. I need an heir. I cannot wait any longer for a child that may never come. You know this is the way it must be. Those words hit Stella like a stone and she froze. A child that may never come, she said, stammering. Wow, I thought you said we were in this together, Bamidele. I thought you said you would stand by me no matter what life throws at us. I thought you said you love me. We already visited the healer in the village and she said there was nothing wrong with either of us, that we just need to be patient and that there is a reason for our delay. Tears streamed down her face, and she didn't even know if the tears were because of her inability to bear children yet, or the words coming from her husband. I need a woman who can bear me children, Stella, Bamidele continued, his eyes not meeting hers. For how long do you want me to wait based on a word spoken by someone that might just be a lie? You are a good wife, Stella, and you would forever remain the queen of my heart, but you have failed me in this one thing, and I'm tired of waiting. Stella's lips trembled as she fought back tears. I haven't failed you, Bamidele. I have given you everything else, she whispered, but the words felt hollow. She could see in his eyes that there was no room for negotiation. I guess this is where your for better, for worse ends, she said as she walked back into the house with tears streaming down her face. A few weeks later, Kemi arrived. She was everything that Stella was not. Young, vibrant, and bursting with fertility. Kemi's beauty was undeniable, and it didn't take long for Bamidele to fall under her spell. Her laugh was like music, her smile bright and wide, and when she moved through the house, it felt as though the sun itself had entered. At first, things seemed to be going smoothly. Bamidele tried to not choose favourites and performed his duty to both women equally. But things changed immediately. Kemi became pregnant. Within months of Kemi being in the house, she was pregnant. The joy Bamidele felt that day knew no bonds. He called the villagers together to rejoice with him, and Stella, who had once been the centre of attention in her home, now felt like a mere shadow in her own home. Some of the villagers even had the guts to call her barren to her face, while some wouldn't stop eyeing her. Little did Stella know that the treatment she received during the celebration was only a tip of the iceberg, and there was more to come. Stella. Bamidele called her the next day. "Go fetch me some firewood. Kemi needs to rest. You know she is carrying my child." And so her suffering and humiliation began. And Stella, trying to remain the ever-dutiful wife she has always been, would nod and go without a word, or what else could she do? The once warm, loving atmosphere of their home had turned cold, with Kemi now at the centre of everything. At first, Stella tried to brush it off, but it was hard not to notice the subtle changes in her family's dynamics. She had once been the mistress of her home, but now she was relegated to the background. She found herself doing chores from dawn until dusk, while Kemi would lounge about with Bamidele dotting on her at every step of the way. The house was becoming a battlefield, with Kemi taking every chance she has to remind her that she was the one carrying their husband's child, something she has not been able to give him for years. Stella had no choice but to endure. She wasn't going to lose her home to someone who had no idea of how it started. Every day she smiled through her pain, masking the hurt in her heart, even as Kemi's presence became more oppressive. Months passed, and the atmosphere in Bamidele's home grew more chaotic by the day. The sun rose and set, but it was as if the days themselves had become endless for Stella. Kemi's pregnancy grew steadily, and Bamidele was there every step of the way, his attention unwavering. He would sit by Kemi's side during meals, offering her the choicest bits of meat and ensuring that her comfort came first. He had made it clear both in actions and words that Kemi was now the heart of the home, and Stella was to quietly accept her position as the third wheel of the house. It wasn't just Bamidele's blatant favouritism that hurt, it was Kemi's cruelty. She had become bolder with each passing day, her arrogance growing in direct proportion to the swell of her belly. She would saunter around the house directing Stella to do chores that belonged to her. Stella had tried complaining to her husband, but his words ended up adding salt to her injury. "You know she is pregnant," he said, "and pregnant women sometimes behave in funny ways, and I don't expect you to understand, because you have never been pregnant, so just bear with her and do whatever she wants." As if that wasn't enough, Bamidele told Stella she would need to start following him to farm, something she had never done before. Other women in the village had always been jealous of how her husband never allowed her do any farm work. He would always say, "I would hire people if I need help. I can never allow my wife do this tedious work." His excuse has been that they needed to prepare for the additional child that was coming into the family. At this point, Stella was already tired of complaining and had accepted her fate despite the pain growing daily in her heart. She had become the object of mockery both in her home and in the village. Stella continued to silently and obediently bear the brunt of her humiliation. It wasn't just the physical labour that wore on her, it was the emotional toll. She had once been the centre of Bamidele's world, but now she felt like a ghost. The love they had shared, once so deep, had withered under the weight of his disappointment and Kemi coming into their life. He had become another person entirely. Years went by and Stella poured herself into doing chores around the house to keep herself busy and also have a sane mind. By this time, Kemi had given birth to three children, and they were all female. She made it a point of duty to get pregnant almost every year, hoping she would give their husband the male child he so desired. "At least I am better than you," she would say. "I have given our husband 3 children while you haven't even given him any in your many years of being in this home." Stella, on her own part, saw no difference between having a male or a female child. Children are a gift from God irrespective of their gender, and should be treated equally, she would always say in her mind. 7 years later. Stella woke up one morning and noticed how unusually tired she had been in the past few days, and also she had not seen her period for about a month now. "Could it be that I am pregnant?" she asked herself, but she had long accepted her fate and stopped giving herself false hope. Despite her fears, she decided to go to the village healer, an elderly woman they all consort for healing in the village, the same woman who told her she would bear children in her lifetime many years ago. As she walked the familiar dirt path to the healer's hut, her heart thudded in her chest. She had lived through so much already, and now, this. It felt like the world was shifting under her feet, and she was caught in the middle of it all. She wasn't sure if she should be happy or sad. The healer, a wrinkled old woman with kind eyes, greeted her warmly. "Ah, Stella, what brings you to my door today?" she asked, her voice soft and reassuring. I think I am pregnant," Stella said, her voice barely a whisper, "but I don't know for sure." The healer studied her carefully before nodding. "Let me see, child," she said gently. The examination was quick but thorough. The healer's eyes sparkled with a knowing glint as she took Stella's hand. "You are with child," she confirmed, her voice filled with joy. "A great blessing. You will bear twins. Maybe even triplets." The words hit Stella like a thunderclap. She couldn't believe it. After years of humiliation, after the pain of feeling like an incomplete woman, she was pregnant. Not just with one child, but with possibly more. The tears that she had held back for so long began to spill freely down her cheeks. The healer smiled. "Do not worry, child. This is a sign of great things to come." Stella sat there in stunned silence, the weight of the news settling in her heart. She was pregnant. After all this time, after all the humiliation and pain, she had finally conceived. The hope that had been buried deep inside her began to rise once more. But what did this mean for the family? Would this change anything? Or was it too late? She had endured so much and wasn't even sure she had the heart to forgive her husband, even if he apologized. This was meant to be their day of joy, but he had not been patient enough. He had betrayed her in the worst way possible and had caused her so much pain. As Stella walked back to her home, the news simmered in her mind. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew that this was the beginning of something big, something that would shake the very foundation of her family. Her heart pounded in her chest as she approached the door, knowing that everything was about to change. What do you think will be the reaction of Bamidele and Kemi when they hear about Stella's pregnancy? Do you think Stella would be able to forgive her husband even if he apologizes? Stay tuned for the second part of the story.